Greetings on this beautiful Sunday evening and welcome to Just a Little Talk. We are coming to you live on today where we have a great session in store for you on today. We're glad to have with us Miss Alicia D, who is an educator and photographer, Mr. Vernon Jones Jr., Director of Operations and Strategy with Faith Bridge and lead pastor of Kinship Church out in Denver, Colorado, and Dr. Ed Bell, who is an educational consultant. They are our guests on today, and we have a very good topic on today. Our topic for the day is the new way of learning and teaching during the pandemic. Let's keep our children safe. Once again, we want to welcome you on today for this Just a Little Talk, and we are excited about these voices that's going to come to us on today, and we have some very good questions, and I know they got even better answers on today. And so let's just dive right into it. Amen. We're going to start with you, Alicia D. We're going to start with you. I was in Walmart today, and the hallways and as you come in are lined up with school supplies, and I know that they have them lined up because they are anticipating the students starting back to school. So if our schools are reopened, how can we assure that our children are following proper safety procedures?
Okay, so thanks for having me. First of all, let me say that everybody wants to get back to normal, right? Everybody is just like reeling from this situation that we're in. I can only speak for my school system, right? Our school system has decided to give parents and students a choice, right? They can go straight virtual, straight remote, never have to come back into the classroom. Okay. We also have an option where the students can come in for 3 days for an onboarding situation, and then they go right back out to virtual. Okay, so we got some options that are put in place to give parents and students to empower them, right? Like they have a choice. It's not like a either or. And even at the end of the semester, they get to choose if they want to switch. Okay, so when we do go into the classroom for these 3 days, we'll have 3 cohorts of students coming in. And each cohort is only like 3 days. We're not going to have big numbers. So we will be able to ensure, the proper safety measures, the guidelines from the CDC, the, social distancing and all that sort of thing, because the numbers, we won't have big numbers. The class sizes will be slashed in half, if not even maybe a third of the students. So it's not going to be an issue. It's not going to be that big of a deal, making sure all the students are abiding by, the rules and they're kept safe. Like we're going to have the sanitation, everything about the, the lunchroom, the hallway, like all this will be, and our school is relatively new. So we have more space. And so, yeah, we're gonna keep the kids safe for those days that we have them in the classroom.
Are you looking forward to it? Are you looking forward to going back? Or
yeah, I am. So here's the deal. I got right back into I was in Europe in March, and I got back into the States right before they closed the borders. Mm-hmm. Okay. Literally, I barely made it back in. And it's one thing. My personal philosophy is that I cannot live in fear. Right? I cannot live in fear, because once that fear grips you, you're crippled by it. And we had a few, run-ins where, we thought we were sick, right? Because you just have all these, the more you watch the news, the more paranoid you get. Mm-hmm. And so we did have a few, scares where we thought we were sick or something like that. And I have had some deaths in the family, not close to me, but I know it's a real thing. But for me personally, I think I can do these 3 days, and I think I can do these 3 days with the kids, with the cohorts, and come back out and be fine.
Okay, all right, sounds good. All right, Pastor Jones, out in beautiful Denver, Colorado. God bless you, Pastor. Listen, what are your thoughts about the start of the 2021 school year? Should the students return face to face?
Yeah, so we thank you again. Thank you, Doctor, for having us on here. And I think the challenge that we have in Denver, in Colorado specifically, we have different school districts doing different things. Our largest school district, Denver, which serves about 93,000 students, they're going to delay their start. They're going to start with remote learning on August 24th, and then they're going to reassess after September 8th to see if they're going to do a in-person learning. Aurora Public Schools, which is about half the size of Denver, but is probably the nearest metro district for us, they decided just this last week that they're not going to go back to school until October the 8th. And so they've already committed to the district that they're going to do their first quarter completely all remote learning, and kids won't be returning to any kind of in-person learning until they can evaluate in October. Everybody's dealing with the Tri-County Health Department recommendations in Aurora. Denver is dealing with the Denver Health Authority recommendations. And so you've got superintendents and teachers and school leaders really trying to get their cues from health officials. And you've got politicians who want schools to be back open, who know that part of the economy is getting kids back in school so parents can go back to work. But I think we have to be cautious. I mean, I think as Sister Alicia was saying, we all want our kids back in school. We all want them learning. But we also want them to be healthy. We want teachers to be healthy. We want administrators to be healthy. So I think there's a balance, and I think we keep trying to make it a either or, but it's really a both. Kids need to be healthy, and as I said, kids also need to be reading, right? So we can't, back away from the responsibilities that we have to educate our kids, especially in places like in certain parts of Denver. As Dr. Darwin, as you know, there's some places in Denver where we got kids reading 26% proficiency in reading, right? That means 74% of those kids are not reading at grade level. And so the longer they're away from a classroom, the longer they're away from, some guided instruction, it's gonna make those achievement gaps wider. And so we're definitely concerned about that. So it's a both. We gotta manage the health challenges, and we also gotta simultaneously say, kids gotta be reading, right? Mm-hmm. Kids have to be reading. They have to be reading. And let's not. I know Miss Alicia say this too. Let's not be naive to think that we want to rush back to schools, and by we I mean Black folks. Right. Let's say we're not in a hurry to rush back to schools that have not been serving our kids well, mm-hmm. right? So I'm not in a hurry to send my kids back to a space that it may be healthy, they may have all the precautions in place, but if you are still practicing, oppressive pedagogy, if you're still practicing all of those different things that send Black kids to the office more than it sends them to the library, if you're still practicing those things, those are also things that we got to take care of. So there's a lot of work to be doing, man. A lot of work to be doing. And I'm glad we got people like Alicia on the front line handling it. Yes.
Dr. Bell, now I've got a good question for you here. Now, our President Donald Trump
Lord,
has said that reopening schools is a priority. Is it a priority for him, or is it a priority for us to keep our children home if we do not feel that it is safe for them to return?
Well, in essence, politically, it would be a priority for the president for all schools to reopen and for kids to go back in school. So much so that it is a priority for him and his administration. Mm-hmm. It has been noted that funds could be withheld. So that even makes it a priority for the administration. But to extend that, if I were a parent of school age children now, and knowing the climate with COVID-19 and all the uncertainties about the spreading of the virus and who gets it versus what age, my kids wouldn't be going to school as things are right now. But that's an individual determination for each household to decide. And so unfortunately, the priority comes, I think the pastor said earlier, the issue becomes a priority when you have children, especially our children, especially African-American students, especially low-income students, just a gamut of marginalized students who are not in school. with learning, with the level of learning, with an agenda to learn, with an agenda to be educated, then that is a priority in not only for returning back to school, but it's a priority in our communities. So what do we do if our kids are not going back to school, be it our fears legitimately or not, be it the concern of the virus, the unknowns, so they're not going back to school? The priority needs to be, what are we doing in our communities to ensure the reading, the rigor, the academic? Because what's going to happen, Pastor, we are going to be left backwards academically.
Yes.
Because our kids are not in school learning.
Exactly.
And that's the issue as relates to what's the priority. But going back to school for the administration part is a priority because it's political.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Bell, for that answer. Thank you, Dr. Jones and Alicia. Alicia, what are the pros and cons? What are the pros and cons of having to teach face-to-face or virtually?
You know, you always want to be in the student's presence, right? You always want to have that connection. You always want to engage. You know, you can tell by their body language and, you know, if they're having a bad day. And it's just good to have community, right?
Yeah.
Listen, we really don't want to be teaching online. Okay. We really want to be, you know, have our students there. But, you know, given our circumstances, that's not possible, right? So my whole thing is, listen, we got to make the best of this. We got to make it do what it do. And, you know, I know when we first came out of this, like in March, when we were like all thrown back at home, you know, and everything was kind of disarray, the students, there wasn't much consistency and the students felt all, you know, discombobulated, and so did we as teachers. But going in the fall, things should be a little bit more organized. We're all using the same platform with Canva. And so students should feel a little bit more at ease as we move into this starting the school year. The onboarding process is going to be right. We're going to make sure the students have all the equipment they need. We're going to make sure, you know, there's equity. So, you know, we just got to go with what they tell us to do.
Right.
And my thing is, I got to just have a good, because as a teacher, if I have a bad attitude about it, right,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to impact the students. So I'm always trying to just, you know, think, you know, how can we make the best out of this situation? We're here. We can't change it. What are we going to do? How are we going to move forward? What does that look like? How can we get these students learning, right? How can we get them in synchronous? So we have two different styles of learning. We have synchronous and asynchronous. And synchronous is where we're live, right? We're going to be live talking to the students, but they will also have that opportunity to have asynchronous learning where it's recorded video and they can watch it 2 or 3 times if they don't get it. So, you know, there's going to be some options out there for our students and parents. And so we're just going to make the best of it.
Right. And I really think, Pastor Jones, I really think that, you know, when we are able to teach face-to-face, I think that you can get a better grasp on how the feel of them instead of virtually. Because I told somebody the other day, I said, you know, even if we decide to teach virtually, you know, it has to be a effort on behalf of the parents or whoever houses their, because when we are teaching, the student can actually be on their phones.
Right.
They can actually be out in the yard playing. Who's to say are they going to actually be paying attention when we teach virtually?
Well, let me answer that if I could. So we're going to require this time around that the students, when we say synchronous, that it is live teaching. That means we see, just like this platform where we see everybody's faces. That's the goal, you know, and to come on and have a safe space where they can learn, you know, a quiet space. And we know this is not always an easy thing for some families, right?
Correct.
it's hard for me sometimes to find a quiet spot. So
Yeah.
there definitely are some cons to teaching online. And we just have to deal with them as they come and just stay connected to our kids at the beginning to know which students might potentially have some issues, and we may have to go around and, support them a little bit more, give them some more resources, put some more resources in place. We will also be having like small groups where we're going to break out and work with students in a smaller setting, so they will feel a little bit more encouragement and feel like, okay, I'm in a group where I can actually take a little bit more time and grasp these concepts. So, virtual isn't all, it's got its negative things, but it's all we have. It's
right.
CMS, it's all we got right now.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. All
Right. And I think to your point, Alicia, I think it's very important that, it's got to be better than what it was in March, because March snuck up on us. And right. It's March snuck up on folks. Nobody was prepared for it. Everybody was still trying to process their own personal, lives around this pandemic. What I love to hear about what your district is doing, and what I applaud the districts here, Aurora, Denver, Jefferson County, what I've learned here in Colorado is that the folks who are taking the time to actually make sure that even virtual learning is quality, right? Parents have got to demand, and parents have to partner with schools to make sure that this is still a quality experience for our kids. We can't just say, sit them in front of the computer like it's, PBS Kids or Nickelodeon or something, and it's just going, we've got to participate. Parents have got to be engaged. Guardians have got to be engaged. And we've got to demand the same quality. I love how you talked about the small groups and that intentionality that's going to take place. I think we have to be able to say, well, what if this is our reality for the next 6 months? What if this is our reality for the next 13 months, right? We have to begin to imagine a different way of delivering quality education to our kids. And I'm actually excited about this disruption. Everybody gonna get mad because I said I'm excited about it, but I'm excited about this disruption because it is causing folks to look at equity issues, to your point, Alicia, that they haven't looked at before. That they were sweeping under the rug, like, oh yeah, all of a sudden in our city, everybody got technology. Well, we've been talking about these kids not having the technological gap. We've been talking about that for the longest time, but then all of a sudden we said the Chromebook fairies dropped in Denver, and every kid in Denver, Aurora, everybody got a Chromebook all of a sudden, right? So these equity things that have always been there, now all of a sudden folks are being forced to deal with the fact that they weren't serving kids well. And I think we have to continue to push that. We have to continue to push this standard of quality. We have to continue to push this standard of, I love how Alicia said, look, it's what we got, right? It's what we got, and what we've got's got to be quality for kids.
Thank you so much.
Pastor Lillard, let me just add to what Joan said. It is true that this is all that we have now. I teach online, so I see some of the pros, lots of pros of teaching online, and I also tutor online, and there's a lot of pros there as well. Mm-hmm. One of the concerns that I have is those families or those homes without the infrastructure, without the ability to facilitate online learning. That's the disconnect that we're going to face as a community and as a race or population of people. Because what is happening that I'm hearing from the ground is that schools are offering this online infrastructure, but there's a segment of the population who is not going online. And so consequently, not only are we going to have an educational gap that was already there, it's going to be an ocean now, because online instruction is in many ways is the new norm. And so when you have homes who don't have that in the homes, and then what happens with Raheem continues to get behind. And the question becomes, if he is already behind academically, how does he ever catch up?
Right.
And so it's going to be incumbent upon my pastor friends that once we get back to whatever this new norm will be, that our community needs an infusion, an inundation of resources to work with kids after the benediction, after church, academically, because there's going to be a gap. And so we can sit and talk about the cons of online learning. This is what we have. And so we're going to have to somehow fill in that gap that is real.
And that leads me right into the next question for you, Pastor Jones. How important is it that business leaders, church leaders, community leaders, and those who are retired to step up and work together with the schools to make sure that our students are being educated and being safe?
Yeah, there's no other way that we do this if folks don't step up, right? I've always believed that education is about the collective. It's always about what the community should be doing, right? And those of us on here, we nod our heads because that's how we grew up, right? I could be getting a bad grade when I was in elementary school, get a C- on something, and I'd sit down in the barbershop chair, and Mr. Floyd would pop the back of my neck. And he'd say, "Boy, what I hear about you getting this C-." And I said, "Man, how do you know about my C-?" Right? But because education was something that was a collective of our community, that's how it was. You heard about it at the barbershop, you heard about it at the chip store. Everybody was engaged when I was growing up about focusing on our education. And if we are going to make it through this, it's going to require us to get back to, I love what Dr. Bell said, to work after the benediction. It's going to require folks to do some volunteering after work hours. It's going to require parents to adjust. I've got 5 kids. Bless me. Hallelujah. I got 2 kids in college and I got 3 kids that are still in the K-12 system, right? And we've got to do some adjustment as parents. We got to say, these aren't our kids that we just hand off to the school system and say, "Hey, y'all teach them." We're their first teachers. Me and their mother, we are their first teachers. So if anybody's concerned about them reading, if anybody's concerned about their numeracy, if anybody's concerned about their critical thinking and their inquiry skills, it begins with us first, right? So parents have got to step up. There should be no one sitting on the sideline right now, right? If you were sitting on the sideline right now, you are not about our children, right? If you trying to find an excuse why you don't need to engage, you ain't about our children. And we're discerning the wheat from the tare in this moment. We're discerning the sheep from the goat. That's what's going on in this moment. And I think we got to pay attention to that. Any business that does not want to help, any church that wants to just be on Sunday, those are some places that we need to make sure they close down because they ain't about it. But we need folks who want to be about it and understand this isn't a moment to sit on the sideline. If we're going to make sure, I love how you said, we're going to make sure Raheem, the gap is closed and he does not take these steps backwards and digress, then that means we got to step up. That means Dr. Darwin's got to be running the literacy club. That means Dr. Bell's got to be running the literacy club. That means the organizations I work with, Faith Bridge, as we work to mobilize church communities to get involved in their communities and education, that means all those churches have got to be engaged doing something to make sure that our kids are not failed on our watch. And I love that. I told Dr. Bell I'm going to steal that and use it here in Colorado because nobody knows he said it, but working after the benediction. That's going to be a slogan here.
I have a little, actually, I don't have it with me, Pastor, but I have a little book I wrote, Inspiration.
Oh.
And the title of the book is called After the Benediction. It's just inspiration because it's
I'll
needed.
give you the credit in the my city.
All right.
So, but that's what it's got to be. It's got to be. We got to be committed to that. I mean, Darwin and I worked together here in Denver when he was here, and I think we were nonstop. I mean, we were always invested in the lives of kids because we knew that the time they had in the classroom was just a small slice of the day, right? And we had to be able to invest in their lives in very different ways beyond their time in the classroom. And so, it's time to get back to what we know, collectivism in education, rather than this isolated, siloed approach that has been pressed upon us.
And now I have a mentoring program called VICE, and I'm using it in the school system here in Norfolk. And really what has hurt me is that I'm not able to see those young men now. I'm not able to really put my hands on them now to really mentor them and do the things that I was doing, and they was doing so well. And so some of those things, and like you said, it's going to take, it's not just going to take those who are in the school system. It's going to take everybody now to help teach and train them. That was a question came in for you, Alicia. It was how many hours of the day they're asking that you think that students will be required to be online per day?
Well, 6 hours. That's the mandate from the DPI, NC DPI, that students have 6 hours of instruction every day. That may not all be online, right? They actually gave us a breakdown of each class. Like if you have an elective, how many minutes that will be per day, per week, versus a required, like English and math course. So they broke everything down, and you will know exactly how much instruction you get. And there's also breaks in there and social interactions and that sort of thing that are incorporated into this virtual day. So 6 hours is required.
Okay, all right. Dr. Bell, what do you think would be the impact on parents, low-income families, others regarding helping students with schoolwork, parents having to work, and the like?
Oh, it's going to be great. It's going to be serious. And there's going to be a divide for as preparation and understanding the content and the lesson. For example, I think I said earlier, I tutor online. I do Zoom tutoring for kids. And the reason for doing that is to make sure that kids are kept up as though they were in school. Because one of the things that is happening with this ready thing with being thrust into online, kids lost their schedule. And so the parents that I'm working with, the parents are devising a schedule as though their kids were still in school.
Right.
That's important. Also, what's also important, the work that students are doing before Corona, before COVID-19 was difficult to understand. For example, as I said, I tutor, and I will never forget, a second grader brought home some work for a tutoring session. And the work was based on addition using a number line, which made no sense to me. Because where I grew up and how I was taught, I didn't have to hop and skip to add numbers. I just added the numbers. And so even before COVID-19, there was a disconnect in teaching and learning and the curriculum. And now we're thrust into COVID-19, and it's probably going to be online. Some will come to school, some won't come, and there'll be a hybrid combination. So understanding the work is going to be difficult because parents may not have what it needs to teach the lesson. And so kids are going to get further behind. And so it's going to be important. So for that parent who's struggling to help their child to find a resource to help their child, because if not only will we have a gap, there would be an ocean of understanding in academics, because the level and the sophistication of work today, schoolwork, is difficult. Now we got the pandemic. She's laughing, but I'm telling you, that number line for me, Common Core Math, made absolutely no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, there's a gap. That's true.
Just to add numbers, you have to jump and do hoops, and it all makes no sense. And so I really do. I have a heart and I feel for the parents.
Yeah.
who now have become teachers in many ways, with skills and without skills, and trying to navigate in a world that we're in now to make sure that their boy and their girl, that they are on par academically.
Yeah.
Right.
In other words, the struggle is real. Serious.
And I think you made a good point, because it doesn't matter your level of education,
No.
right? It doesn't matter. It's still difficult when you look at the stuff that they send home, that we send home. It's like,
but I challenge anyone on the panel to go to a second grade or third grade math and look at the number line for addition and for subtraction.
Listen, that stuff we about to revert back to the old way.
Right. Touch points, and we about to.
Look, listen. I had to come after a tutoring session with this young guy. I had to come home myself, and I had to Google and watch videos on how to jump a number line to add. And so I said, I'm not teaching that. I said, because when the student goes into the grocery store, or if it now become an adult, if you add in and subtracting on your checkbook, you're not using the number line.
Correct.
You're taking out a piece of paper and you're writing those numbers down. And you're adding and subtracting, and that's it. And so my heart goes out to the parents.
Yes.
Dr. Darwin, can I tell Alicia, when you said the 6-hour requirement, there, I just want to be clear, and you know, in Denver, and Aurora here in Colorado, there's going to be requirements like that too for students. But I want to be sure that parents hear what you said, that there's going to be synchronous and asynchronous learning, right? And those hours could be inclusive of those. And at least here, that's what we're saying, is that it's not. I don't think anybody wants kids sitting in front of this thing for 6 hours straight. No. That is just not healthy. No research on the planet would ever tell you to do that, right? Right. So parents need to know that you need to monitor this. You need to make sure that you know your synchronous schedule, that you need to know the asynchronous, and really be flexible, be fluid, or you're going to go crazy, right? I'm telling you, parents, you got to be able to manage this with the life that's going on, because you're still dealing with at-home restrictions, mask restrictions, all this different kind of stuff. So I think it's important that parents know that I have not read any district nationwide that is telling parents to keep your kids in front of a screen for 6 hours.
No, it'll be difficult. Not only that, I implore and beg parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles, whoever involved in the lives of children, is to make sure at all costs, some kind of way, that your child engage with the online platform. That's going to be that's important for our people.
Yes.
It may not be something that we want to do. It may not be something that we have the capability in our home to do. But you have the public library, you have McDonald's, you could even sit in the parking lot of some churches and feed off the internet. So pastors, don't lock your internet. So maybe you have some church members who want to feed off your internet in the parking lot.
That's
so
real.
they can do the work.
Correct.
So we have to beg and implore our parents, whoever, to make sure that your child is engaging with this online infrastructure. If you don't have a computer, borrow a computer. And sometimes it's one computer in the house for everybody. And that's difficult. You have one computer for all 6, 7, whatever, how many need to use a computer, then your computer goes out. But if I know there's a church around the corner and their internet is not locked, so I can drive in the parking lot and I can feed off their internet, and now I have internet access. So Pastor Lloyd and Pastor Jones, that's something that y'all can do if you're not ready to do it. Open up that internet and let people, kids do the work, and don't be so concerned about what somebody else is doing on your internet. Correct. Just let the kids and the family feed off it. So they can do their schoolwork.
Yes, you're right. And I'm more than welcome. They can use the internet there at any time. Matter of fact, I was speaking to someone the other day. I don't know who it was, but they was telling me that They had to drive to a parking lot, I think Whitney's parking lot, to actually get their internet connection. And so, yes, you're correct, Dr. Bell. And we community leaders, we're going to have to open up for this kind of stuff if we want to get these done. Alicia,
and push, and I would say to that point, even locally, begin to push conversations around should internet access be a public utility. Those are some conversations that we've been having in Colorado about shouldn't everybody just have access.
exactly.
Right? And so I think, yeah,
all students got free access if they didn't already have.
Right.
In March, they went home with a Chromebook and they still have it.
Right, you have it.
yeah.
Yes.
So
Did you guys do hotspots, Alicia? Did you guys also do Did you guys do hotspots for the kids as well?
no, if you didn't have internet at home, the local service provider gave it to you for
Like
free.
we did. Okay. Good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Yes, this is good. This is very good information. I tell you, this is very good. Alicia, as an administrator, I'm gonna say as an educator, a teacher, what would you do to make sure that students are moving safely throughout the classroom, throughout the hallways and the cafeteria, and when they're catching the bus?
Listen, these administrators are going to tell us exactly what to do. When we go back into the schools in the building, we're going to have all kind of rules and regulations, okay? And I'm following every last one of them. Okay, so some of this stuff we're not going to have to worry about how we're going to do it. We're just going to implement what they tell us to do. Right. If it's still, 6 feet, if it's, walking down the hall, with if we got partitions up, whatever they tell us, I'm confident enough in CMS that they're gonna provide the information that we need, the direction, the instructions, and we're just gonna implement them. Okay, because they've already made a decision that empowers us already, because we have a choice. We don't have to go back into the school, and they're not going to make any choice. If the numbers go up, listen, when we're going up, we're going to be right here at the house.
Yeah.
Let's just give you the statistics on North Carolina. Okay, North Carolina, we have had in Charlotte. No, in my district, we have had over 19,000 cases and 187 deaths.
Wow.
Okay, based on that, we're not going back into the classroom.
Yes, you're right. You're
okay?
right.
So if these numbers go up, and they're using these numbers to make their recommendations for what we do.
Thank you. Leading us into the next question for Pastor Jones. We see that the number of coronavirus cases are increasing. COVID-19 is here, whether we like it or not, is here. How can we relate the message to those who are in charge of these school districts that we cannot risk our children transmitting the virus to classmates, to teachers, or even bringing it home to their parents? Dr. Jones?
Right. I think that's, we have to look at, and I know some folks nationally are afraid of science, but I think we have to understand what science is saying to us, and we can't, look, let me just say, I got an old school grandmother that if it lightnings a certain way, we got to turn off everything in the house and don't play with God, right? Like, so y'all understand from North Carolina. See, my grandmother's from Louisville, so we understand when the Lord talking, you don't mess with it, right? And so we got to have some sense to say, wait a second, this is an infectious disease. We don't know how it's going to move. We don't know how it's going to, the transmission has been, come on now. We just got to be wise in this moment and say, look, and I like what Alicia said, if the data is telling us we don't have a handle on this, then we got no business putting teachers, students, administrators in harm's way, right? Until we can get a handle on this, until we can manage these things appropriately, make the correct take the appropriate precautionary measures, we don't need to rush. And I think this is our struggle, is that we're rushing back we want to rush back to normal when what we really need to be processing and grieving is that the normal that we knew is no longer,
Yeah.
right? The normal that we knew will never return, right? And so we've got to deal with our grief and deal with our trauma about that and deal with the new reality that we have to plan around and not be afraid to think outside the box, not be afraid to stretch the hours of instruction, not be afraid to say, let's do split days, let's do split, whatever, right?
Mhm.
You're dealing with a pandemic that none of us on this call
Mhm.
have ever dealt with. No one on here has pandemic experience, right? If you do, you'd be at the White House with Dr. Fauci getting talked out by the president, right? But
Amen.
none of us have pandemic experience. So we need to just be wise. We need to discern, look at science, and don't play with God. Let me just put it that way. Don't play with God. Just be wise and say, we want kids healthy. We want teachers healthy. I read a quote from a teacher just the other day on Facebook, and she said, "I want to get back to school. Definitely want to get back to in front of my kids, but I don't want to get back to school and then have to go to a funeral because I was in such a hurry to get back to school." Right. So let's process the humanity of that and say, at the end of the day, if we all have to step up and change our game to make sure education is happening in new ways and different ways in our community to protect lives, that's the most important thing.
Yes. Great job. Yes, Dr. Bell. We cannot control what students do prior to coming to school. Okay. Who they interact with, or if they practice social distancing. How can we know for sure that students are COVID free if we are not testing them every day when they come to school?
Well, we would not know if they are COVID free if we did not test them every day. So yeah, and so I just think about the situation. Let's say the student gets up that particular morning, and he goes into the school building, bought a temperature check, and then he's in school all day. Then he goes back home.
Mm-hmm.
And so in going back home, we don't know what's happening. And then the child returns back to school. And so practically and realistically, are we in a position to do testing every day, two times a day for that child? And so I don't think we'll ever know for sure, but I think we could put our best efforts forward. Because I have not been tested yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's quite a few of us who have yet to be tested. And so what would be ideal in an ideal world, let's say we all were tested on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that doesn't mean what can happen on Wednesday. So would I need to be tested on Wednesday as well? And so It's one of those things that I think we can reduce or mitigate the possibility of catching something. But for as children are concerned, as I said earlier, if I were a parent of school-age children, and if I had the ability and the resources, I would not send my child back to school as things are now. Exactly. If I had the resources and the ability to teach him or her at home, or as Pastor Jones said, teach my 5 children at home, I wouldn't send them back because of the question.
Right.
Because I don't know.
Correct.
Who may not be exposed to the virus at any given day. And I can social distance. I can do the face mask. I could do the temperature check. All I want to, because there was something a couple of weeks ago, I think there were 3 teachers who was working together in a classroom, and they said that they were doing everything right. The hand sanitizing, the social distancing, they were doing everything right, especially while they were in school. Mm-hmm. All 3 caught the virus, and one of the teachers died as a result of catching the virus, and they say they was doing everything
Yeah.
right while they were in school.
Yeah.
And so, but I think what would help certainly if we all were tested. But how often will we need to be tested? But we have to start somewhere, because we just don't know. The science is not conclusive as to, because one time they were saying kids, that young people weren't as susceptible. You know, it was the older people, and then you don't have to wear the mask. Now, yes, wear your mask. Older people now, younger people. Well, that's okay because science and information evolves.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the words of Maya Angelou, when you know better, you do better. So now science is doing better. So I don't fault the scientists. It's things evolve, information trickles out, and you just change the way you're doing business. So I would venture to say, as time go on, we will get new information.
True.
And then people will poke finger at the scientists. But they should have said that no, they're just scientists. They don't know everything. Information is being developed as time goes and times go on. So it's a difficult situation.
Right.
And I think it's a difficult decision to make per household.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's the charge and it's difficult for parents to make, because parents have to work. They are very essential in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
They can't be absent. They may not have the infrastructure at home for the online.
That's right.
Could be singleness in the house, mother, father. And so could be food, could be an issue. Childcare could be an issue. But what's so unfortunate, taking that scenario that I just described, and when you as a parent, you have nothing, the only thing you could do is to send your child into a possible situation that they may catch the virus. Because I have nothing else. Nothing. I don't have the resources at home. I don't have the abilities at home. And so I may be sending my child into a house that's on fire.
Exactly.
I have nothing else. And so that's the thing that tugs at me, is those parents who don't have the resources to make those options that's in the best interest of their children.
Good. There's a question that came in, and I want us to, either one of you can jump on it and answer it. How will we be able to educate the social, emotional disturbed children?
What, can you clarify that question? Like,
I don't know. This is a question.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I did the same.
one of the things,
I don't know if the question that pertains to as it relates to why the child is at home online or not. I'm not sure if it relates to. So if the question relates to how do you address the social emotional disturbance of a child while they doing as a result of being at home, socialization is important even during this time. Because, as someone said earlier, kids don't need to be online straight 6 hours. Yeah. And so they have to be doing something that's sociable as well. One of the guys that I tutor, one thing that's on his agenda from his grandmother, there's academics, but it's also time for physical activity, so he can socialize, so he can engage with other children. And so what we don't want to happen is for a child to spend 6 hours in front of a computer, and it's not opportunity to be socially engaged, because that would be a tragic for many kids, because emotionally, because we are sociable people. Many of us, we are sociable beings, and just on a computer doing lessons and work all day, it can really disturb even an adult. So I don't know if that's.
Well, I think too, Alicia, and I read, when I first read it, I said, okay, maybe they're talking about IEPs and
Yeah.
504 plans, and how do we service those needs of students who have needs beyond what we would consider the regular needs, right? So there are kids who have additional needs. They need these special interventions. They need, they've got language acquisition supports, or they've got, this is in their 504 plan, and we've got to do this, right? So I think this goes back again to districts have to pivot. I know in our districts, we've got a lot of resources like family and community engagement department that were used to reach out to communities, to share district information. Well, maybe it's time for those people to pivot and be more supports to parents who are going through this stuff, right? Instead of pushing out information, maybe what they do is they push out support. They understand, hey, we've got these kids in these neighborhoods, they have these IEPs, they've got this. Because the question, if I'm reading it in the context that I think it was written in, it brings up a valid point, is that we've got kids who have special services beyond the general education classroom, that we cannot allow those things to fall through the cracks. Students who need special education service, those things have to be met. We have an equal obligation to make sure that those children are served well as we do any other child. And Alicia, I don't know, I was gonna ask you if your district has made any kind of breakthroughs on how you guys are gonna meet those requirements.
Yeah, well, we our CMS has a video on their website, and basically it says everything that you got when you were in school, you're gonna get online. That's basically what they said. And that meant from 504s, IEP plans, like any kind of supplemental, and they even went so far as to talk about extracurricular activities and clubs. So across the board, they are, committed to trying to figure out a way how to get this done and how to have, not to increase these gaps, right? Like, they're really conscious about that. So that's their promise to us. I'm not really sure how it's gonna, how it will play out, but they specifically have all these charts and graphs about this will not change, this will not change, and this will not change. So I don't know. I guess the money, they're gonna redirect this money and do things differently, right? Pivoting. Like everything about this is changing. And doing things differently. The fact that we are home online, the whole United States, the whole world has pivoted. Pivoting, and people are going to come up. People are going to raise up and meet these challenges for our kids. Right? It's going to happen. There's a shift coming, and it's everything is moving. And people gonna rise up, and they gonna, all these retired people, and they're gonna step up. These church folk, churches doing things differently out the box. Like we all are thinking differently. And it's sad that it took this to make us do that, right? To make us realize that it's not about a building.
Yes. And I was talking to someone yesterday, Alicia, and they told me, they say, really this COVID-19, this pandemic has made us to be better pastors to our members. And as I looked at it, and as what they were saying, they was correct, because of the simple point. Now we are keeping in touch with our members more, and we're reaching people from everywhere. Besides just our congregations on Sunday mornings, we're reaching people everywhere. And so it has really opened up the walls and made us better, not only just better pastors, but have made us better people in general. Okay.
Pastor, before you go on, let me just add to the discussion, and I say this with all heart and sincerity. We should not wait on any school district, across the country for the education of our children. Now, I say that because of this.
Yes.
Before COVID-19, there was, I think Jones alluded to it earlier, we had academic issues. And so we should not assume that anything is going to be different.
Come on, Bill.
The disadvantage that we have here now is because they can put it on the digital divide. But we as a community have to take responsibility for the education of our children like never before.
Mhm.
We are in a cultural pandemic
Yes.
with our communities.
Yes.
And so we cannot sit by. This is not an occasion that we can sit by and pray this away. Now, we have to get involved even more so than ever because we are in an academic war with our children.
Hmm.
And so we have to bring out everything that we can bring out because they are academically now, many of them are going to be left behind because schools are going to reopen again as they once were.
Yes.
But the issue comes when those who have been left behind before Corona, post-Corona, and look at this, the long gap of services, and I would venture to say we will see the ramification of our inaction pre-Corona and post-Corona when those students start dropping out mentally. Because right now, research tells you 3rd or 4th grade, many of our children gone mentally. And now we are putting Corona into the picture. So we cannot wait on the system to provide the level of instruction that our kids need academically and socially, because the academic part is just as critical as the social part. And so I beseech parents, when you have your children at home, that there are things you must teach them socially. How do you respond? How do you behave? How do you engage? How do you code switch? Those are skills that we could be teaching right now.
Exactly.
And whenever the church building open, we have to be there not only for the church service, but for academic support as well. Because we have to jump, we have to run quickly. When those buildings open, pastors, we have to run quickly and not necessarily from Genesis to Revelation with scriptures. We need to bring out the textbooks. We need to bring out and beseech the retired teachers to come out, the volunteers to come out. We need to turn these church services into academic learning institutions because Raheem and LaQuisha are going to suffer.
Yes.
And we have work to do.
Amen. Amen. So true. You know, Dr. Bill, it has been said that parents should sign a release form holding schools responsible for their child if they get COVID-19. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, practically and legally, certainly I understand if the school should do that. I get that point because no one wants to be held accountable for something. Because I reminded a friend of mine was going to a wedding, and the wedding and the bride and the groom was requiring all attendees to sign a disclaimer that if they won't be sued if they catch Corona at your wedding. So I said, well, you don't need to go to the wedding. It's so simple as that. So the school or the systems of places are looking to cover themselves. But what's so unfortunate, Pastor, those parents who don't have the resources at home might sign the paper. Because what else do they have?
Correct.
But to send their child into a burning fire.
Yeah.
But those parents with the resources won't sign it.
Wow.
And so I'm not a lawyer, but even signing the paper, I don't think it really releases one for liability. But just the thought of that happening, sign this and to release us. The have-nots will sign. Those that have, well, my child can stay home.
Right. Right.
And so
right.
that's
Yeah.
so unfortunate, but
Yeah.
it's a very difficult decision to make. For me, I wouldn't send my, as I said earlier, I wouldn't send my child to the school.
Correct. Correct.
And that's just me.
Correct. Correct.
You
Right.
know, I'm just speaking for me. But
That's me.
now I haven't
That's me
heard
too.
that happening, but it was interesting if that actually happens. That's interesting.
Mm. Wow. Wow.
Well, but you speak to it. I mean, in a litigious society where folks know you get sued left and right, it just makes sense for school districts or entities. They're protecting themselves, right?
Yes.
But the issuing of such a document just tells us that we don't have a handle on this. We don't know, right? And so, to your point, is like I love what your point is about. There are some families who will sign that because they have no other option, right? They have no other choice. And I love what you said about putting their kids back in a burning building, right? That's what we have to change in the communities that we live in. Is every family should have the same option I have. And if that means that I got to step up and help my neighbor have the same option that I have in this season because they have to go to work and that's what we got to do. And that's who we've always been, right? That's the collectivism that we're talking about. We've got to be able to say, look, if I've got that choice, my neighbor's got that choice. And if my neighbor's got that choice, the neighbor next to them have got that choice. And we're going to have to just do things differently, get back to the old time way, right? Where we were actually looking out for each other. We were actually saying, look, I am concerned about your kid reading just like I'm concerned about my kid reading, because I understand if your kid can't read, eventually that problem going to end up on my doorstep and try to date my daughter. Lord, the devil is a lie, right? So look, we got to be concerned. We got to be concerned about these things and operate differently. And you're right. Open the churches, open your house, open your pocketbook. And I love what Alicia said and what you said too, Dr. Bell, about getting the retired folks engaged with our group, Faith Bridge. That's what we've done. We reached out to retired Black educators, and they're helping us to craft virtual platforms that will have virtual supports for families. They could be leveraged nationwide, right? But we're saying, look, hey, you still breathing, so you can still be used. So, you know, I know Dr. Bell's retired and comfortable, but he's tutoring all that kind of stuff. I'm gonna call him to do a couple spots.
Listen, I am committed. I'm committed to the cause, and I often think about my son. Now you mentioned learning disabilities and all of that. Yeah. I never forget he was on an IEP. Yeah. He wasn't from elementary, bless his heart, to he got to high school. He was on a 504 plan. So I'm aware of the educational difficulties that parents had, even when he was on the IEP. He learned differently. LD, he was LD in all areas. And I was an okay educated person, but even I had difficulties navigating that system. But because I stayed with it and advocated for him, Jones, now he's a principal of an elementary school. And so parents just need the support and the know-how to navigate systems that might not be in their favor. Yeah. Because everyone who teaches you or teaches your child do not applaud your child. That's a given. And so everybody don't love your child. Yeah. And so that's something that we have to be mindful of as we work with our children.
Okay. Listen, this is we're running out of time. This is the last question, and I want to start with Alicia. I want you all to give us about 2 minutes on this question. What would you tell us today that will make us feel comfortable about our children returning to school or learning virtually?
I don't know. We're all uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. Like we're just all in this together, you know. Mm-hmm. I think at the end of the day, we all are believers, right?
Yeah.
I believe it's going to take our faith and action, right? We put those two together. We start asking God to show us what to do, how to do things, right? I believe He will give us the answer. I just believe that, and it's actionable steps. It's not this kind of fairy tale kind of thing. But we are all uncomfortable. But we are in this together, and we're going to be okay, right? At the end of the day, we're gonna be okay. And we cannot let the fear of what is to come or what is happening, drive us, because we have to just gear down and say what is going to work for your family. And listen, here's the thing too. We cannot beat people up for making the choice that they make for their families. Whatever choice they make, we're gonna say, you know what? I know that was a hard decision. I know you are doing it in the best interest of your child. So I'm not beating up nobody for making any decision they feel like they need to make.
Right.
Okay.
Amen. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Alicia. Pastor Jones.
Yeah, I think to Alicia's point, I just piggyback on that, is that we have great teachers and great leaders across the country who I know are in it for the right reasons, right? And I know that they want to see kids successful. Now we have, you have folks in every industry who shouldn't be there, but I know that we have a lot of folks who believe in the right things for our children. So I think in this period where, as Alicia's point is, it's going to take all of us working together. I believe in the power of our collaborations. I believe in the power of our ability to come together and think outside the box and create a new reality for our children. And I have to believe in parents. I am not a betting man, but I'm betting on parents in this season. I'm betting on the fact that there are dads like me, there are moms like my wife who love their children. And every day we make sacrifices for them. Every day we do what is best for them. I am banking on parents that we are going to step up and we are going to surprise some folks. I'm banking on my neighbor who next door, who her church does these health boxes, fruits and vegetables. And she know I got a lot of kids over here, and she brings me a box and says, Pastor, I know you got a lot of kids over here, so I brought you a box, right? I'm counting on neighbors like that who are going to see the need of another neighbor, and they're going to do what is necessary. So I believe we're going to be all right because of who we are, because of the light that shines in us, because of the faith, to my sister's point, the faith that we hold to, and the fact that parents know children are a heritage from the Lord. We can't fail our children. Amen. Everybody else, I love what Doctor said, was like, not everybody loves our children, but let me tell you, I don't need everybody to love them. I need to love them, right? And if we love our kids, they're gonna be all right. So yeah, that's my words of encouragement to us, that we've got to step up, and I think we're gonna, as Alicia said, we're gonna come through this on the other side and shout glory.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you. Dr. Bell, bring us home, sir.
Oh, well, my thought for, as has been stated, for the faith believers, the only thing that I can offer for is make someone feel comfortable is your belief that things are going to get better. But I'm reminded of the great sister, Fannie Lou Hamer, that you can pray until you faint. But until you get up and do something, God is not going to put it in your hand. Yeah. And so faith is good. And so, I can understand parents being uncomfortable, and it magnifies itself when you have no choices. You have no choice. And so that my faith may be good and strong, that if I send my child to school, that he or she may not contact COVID-19. So my faith has to be strong, and I have to be comfortable with it, because I have no choice but to send. And I don't want to be in that position. I don't want any parent to be in that position. But I'm encouraged with the virtual learning. I'm only encouraged with the virtual learning because I have been doing virtual learning. And I see the possibility, and I see what can happen with the young men that I'm working with now. I am encouraged with virtual learning because the grandparents Notice what I'm saying. The grandparents ensure and the parents ensure that the students are on the Zoom on time and they are attentive. So virtual learning can work, but it has to be the structure at home. So working with parents and grandparents with Zoom instruction, it works. It works because on the other end of the computer, you have adults there. And I am not naive to assume that in every household that happens. And that's where I become despondent and a little sad, because the household that I just described is not in every household. And that's the sad part about it, because it does not happen in every house. So I'm encouraged with virtual learning, but I'm a little sad about virtual learning being spread out. Sending kids to school in the environment in COVID-19 as we know it, I'm uncomfortable, as I said. And the uncomfortability comes when as a parent, I don't have a choice. And the only thing I'm leaning on, Pastor, is my faith. That my child will go into those school buildings, into those classrooms, and he or she would not catch COVID-19. That's the only thing I have. It's my belief, my faith. And faith is just as strong as the person believes.
Yeah.
And so, but we are in a situation that we're in, and I venture to say, I'm not a prophet by any means, but we will probably face another COVID-20 or something similar. So I believe this is just a preparation for something yet to come again. And the question becomes, and the thought becomes, what have we learned from this experience when we face another experience that's to come?
Yes. Amen. Thank you all so much. Thank you so much. You all have really blessed us today. You all have blessed the listeners today. Thank you, Alicia, Pastor Jones, and Dr. Bell for just being the guest today on Just a Little Talk. And once again, I just want to thank you all for just your knowledge and your expertise on these questions and what we have talked about today. And just know that we all are in this thing together. We all are in it together. And we all can make a difference. And I believe that we will make a difference. And I'm just looking forward to being able to be one of those difference makers for our children as they make the decision whether they go back to school or not. Once again, here you have it. You have Alicia D., Pastor Vernon Jones, Dr. Ed Bell. Once again, I want to let you know that just a little talk will make everything all right. God bless you all. I love you. I pray and hope that your families are well. God bless you. We're praying for you. Have a good night.
Good night.
Bless you, Dr. Allen.